other. Learn what's this one there. I think we should how the front of mine.
Right.
So you're off the hook, you're off the hook. Thank you for that first one. Yeah.
Sure. Good to be here. That's a.
Yeah.
We would remember.
If you're gonna have to.
Well.
We want to show there, I think we do, we want to see people out there. We want to see us on, that kind of thing. We'll just, if it's really in the way of the slide, you might need to just kind of like tuck it, move it. We don't like to be having this. But I think it's good to have that. Otherwise you're not.
Sure. Yeah, if you have questions or stuff.
Yeah. So.
I'll do it as you go. That's at least disturbing to the. Awesome.
There's the people who plan, you guys.
Yeah.
You guys just have.
That's good. I just want to see. We're gonna get
Sure.
Okay. Let's see, yeah. Where is it?
They're not on. They don't
Oh.
have their camera on.
So there's, oh, they got the names Ted, John.
Okay, so call Andrew back.
Oh, there's the it was X'd out. How come mine doesn't?
Hey, Griffin or Britton, it looks like your guys' screen is frozen. Can you hear me? We can't hear you.
Hold on one second, Anna. I can hear you. Let me turn you up.
You couldn't hear.
No, I couldn't hear you, Anna.
Your guys' screen looks like it's frozen.
Hmm.
So minimize like
Escape?
Yeah, escape. It's been sitting for a month.
Is that better, Anna?
I can see the slides move now. Are you guys talking in the room?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
We are talking in the room. Can you hear us through the OGWRP Landowner Meeting? Zoom? One second.
No.
Can you also not see us, Anna?
I can see like the room, but you guys are frozen in the room.
Okay, good to know. I think we're just gonna refresh the computer and see what happens. Oh, I hear us now.
Well, it's not coming out yet. You're picking it up on my computer.
I can hear you now. I just can't see you.
Lovely, we can hear you now too.
Okay, let's turn that way down.
Can you hear us on the owl, Anna?
Yep, loud and clear.
Cool. Where's the brand?
You know what?
Yes, thank you.
What are you doing in the closet? We're both.
Yeah.
We're at order.
It's 10:25. It's at 6.
Thank you.
Go in there, see my sign up for one. I'm doing the 10. Or it's such a wide area. Feel like you. Yeah, you understand the whole sheet like I'm gonna tell you.
This is. Takes a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to see it. Yeah, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started in just a few minutes here. Be sure to sign in if you haven't already, right outside the door. We also have some cookies out there and some fruit. Like,
Oh, we can also. In the possibility to show. Probably for that barrier. Yeah. The only thing.
welcome. Feel really far away.
I know. It was pretty important.
I know. We had to do it just once, right? Just once. I've always wanted to be at this.
I didn't like. Some people. That we don't get paid taxes. Yeah. And you know what? Just so, that we don't have to try to get them. Right, oh, yeah, that is so. Yeah. I guess. Was 12, right? So I saw the speed.
There's no one.
Yeah, good, we're always so.
Yeah.
Not nice.
Right.
Yeah.
They just reached out.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much.
Great, we're gonna get started in just a moment here. It's there. Leading the meeting. Great. Well, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm Christina Rebellion, the Executive Director of the Columbia Basin Conservation District. Really appreciate you all coming out today. And I really appreciate Michelle Keys, a dear friend and landowner here on the OGWRP, for kind of prompting us to have this important meeting. It's been a long time since we've come together as an entire OGWRP landowner group. There's been a ton of activity happening, which is fantastic, but we also have a lot of new landowners that are joining the family here with the remaining acres. So it's great to see many new faces today. We're going to start with just some introductions so that we can know really who's in the room. We have several partners here today as well as landowners. So I'll go ahead and we'll start here at the panel and then we'll go to the room and then online.
So, my name is Landowner Meeting. I am the Let's try again. My name is Linnell Canadians. I am the state conservation engineer for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and I work out of Spokane, Washington.
My name is Griffin Hansen. I'm a RCPP program manager here at the Columbia Basin Conservation District.
Hi, everyone. My name is Indira Kulkarni. I'm also with the Columbia Basin Conservation District, and I'm a planner. I'm mostly working on all work.
Good morning, my name is Britton Baker. I am the groundwater monitoring program manager for CBCD.
Dinah Rulo, also with CBCD. I am the conservation director for on-farm and urban conservation.
Good morning, good to see you all here. Harold Cross, I'm the senior technical advisor for the Columbia Basin Conservation District.
Thank you. Ethan, if you'd like to introduce yourself and then pass the mic.
Yeah, morning, everybody. Ethan McJames with the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. That's RCPP. If you hear that acronym, I'm with NRCS. I'm afraid I'm just gonna hand it to you, and if you'll just pass it down, I'll be there at the end, just like in church.
If, as landowners, if you could share which system you're on, that would be really helpful for us. Or systems.
Good morning, I'm Jake Wallman, Junior Warden and Terry Brother.
Good morning, Randy Keys, landowner. I'll let my wife say all the different.
The wife, Michelle Keys, we are on the Wheeler system, the Shrag system, and the 40.2.
Brian Keys, Keys Joint Venture.
Alice Weber, and I'm on 40.2 in the Shrag.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carly Budney. I am the member outreach coordinator for NRCS in the central area.
And we don't want to forget about Ron over here.
Hello, I'm Ron Sawyer with the Columbia Basin Conservation District. I'm the Director of Environmental Monitoring and Restoration.
Hey, I'm Derek 1408 and LLC on 40.2.
Dennis Swinger, 47.5, 50.4.
Good morning, Mark Maynard, different field office manager for the Bureau of Reclamation in the State of Washington.
Doug Clausen on 22.1.
Rob Rickert, I guess to be determined.
One thing with the irrigator.
Aaron Mickelson Farms, and a proposed bear system.
The Family Farms, 40.2, 22.1. Dave Stedman Farms, also supervisor of the Columbia Basin Conservation District. Jerry Gross with MHB Farms, landowner on 22.1 and 11.8.
Eli Stall Farms on 22.1 also.
Blake Higley, I'm on 54.1. Dale Ballroy, I'm a bone.
Alvin with WHB, we're on 47, we're 54, 73, 59, 60, and 60, with an 84.7, so.
Marika Kersley with the NRCS out of the Ritzville Field Office.
Big Clark introduces us.
This one?
Ethan.
No, we got,
Oh, sorry, Clark.
you've got some people online?
All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and say your name online. If you could just go ahead and give a quick, great. So we'll go down the list here.
Don Shireen, Walla Walla Conservation District Supervisor.
Ellen Hine.
I'm with Alice Weber of Weber Farms, and we're on the 40.2 and the Shrag.
Looks like E. Weber.
Hi, this is Eric Weber at Landau Associates. I work with Marlin Huterian Brethren, Round Lake Farms, and Stevens Hay Farms.
John Erickson.
John Erickson with the East Columbia Basin Irrigation District and Columbia Basin Development League.
Britt Kramer.
Hey, Britt Kramer with the administrator for the Columbia Basin Development League. Good to be here.
Brent Bear.
Brent Bear with the EL, I guess it's the Bear system, a small one, North Moses Lake.
Mike Schwiesow.
Mike Suizo, consultant with the 3 Columbia Basin irrigation districts.
It's like Ted.
Yeah, it's Ted Shirkey down here in Othello area. Grower.
Anna Maletsky.
Anna Maletsky, Communication Specialist with the Columbia Basin Conservation District.
Ellen Hine.
Yes, I'm with Alice Weber and Weber Farms, and we have the 40.2 and the Shrag.
IRZ.
Yeah, this is Dylan Hatch, engineer, working with Jerry Gross and 22 landowners on the 11.8 system.
McKenna Murray.
I'm McKenna Murray, hydrogeologist and project manager with Department of Ecology, Office of Columbia River.
Melissa Downs.
Morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Downs. I work for the Department of Ecology's Office of Columbia River.
Sasha McClarty.
Hi, everybody. I'm a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at WSU in Pullman.
Trevor Anderson.
Hi there. I'm with Department of Natural Resources. We're on EL 54, 40.2, and 87.
And Wes Melcher. Wes, are you there? Did I miss anybody?
All right. So today we're going to be going over NRCS programs, both an update on where we're at and hopefully help answer any questions that you have related to on-farm, public system, related things as pertaining to NRCS programs specifically. So hopefully we'll help answer those questions. But first, I'll just say it wouldn't be an OGWRP meeting without some opening remarks from Mr. Harold Crouse. So Harold, if you'd like to say a few words close to the mic. We've been at this now for 6 years, our conservation district has, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, we've actually been at this for about 10 years. I mean,
Partners about 20 per day.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. And I just thought I'd speak about a couple of the things that are just critical and very important as we work with you on navigating the various programs that are available to you to help with technical assistance and on-farm and on the on-farm systems and as well as the delivery systems. But I think the one thing I've learned the most is how important communication is. And not just any communication, but the exact thing that you need to know to move forward. We learned this sometimes the hard way as we move through, but it all starts with you on farm, because this is your water. This is going to be delivered to you. And the importance of that can't be underestimated or overestimated for that matter. So where we like to begin with these programs is to get to know you one-on-one, get to know your farm, get to know your ground, get to know your systems. Because when it comes to the end, having good numbers, having accurate numbers to feed into our system is critical. And I know when we started back with the original systems, we would come on farm and help you map out where all the lines would go and do the sizes to come up with cost estimates. That's more important now than ever before. Money's tight, programs are tight. Building a case of why the federal government should spend money on these projects for you was the first step, and it was a critical step. And we were able to get that done. We built a tremendous team of people from locally, with Conservation District, the Bureau of Reclamation, the Office of Columbia River, all the background pieces are in place. But more importantly, I think, is what we've done up the ladder, all the way to Washington, D.C. Anyone that we thought would have influence on this program, we brought them out here. We put them on the ground, we showed them what we were going to do. And without an exception, every one of those went back and said, this is one of the biggest and best programs we've ever been involved in. And not just for the money that it's spending on it, but for the benefit. Let's not forget what the objective is. You've got an aquifer that's not sustainable. And not only not sustainable, but the quality of water that you're delivering to your farm right now could have damages far reaching down the road for the number one resource, and that's our soil. And you know better than I do the amount of amendments and things you have to put on the soil just to get a crop. So we know that's very important. So let's get back to what we need from you. Like I said, we need to have a relationship with each one of you and build that trust between us and you, that we're here to work for you. And that's going to start with planning. Without a good plan in place, before you walk into anyone's office, particularly the NRCS, they're not going to know what you're doing. We need to have all that in place before you ever walk in the NRCS office. That's all your fields, all your systems, the amount of new pipe you're going to put on, crops you're going to grow, all those things we need to feed into the system. So when you go in there, you minimize the workload and impact that's going to have on NRCS that has had some challenges with some of their staff and capabilities. So getting to know us getting to know you, putting together the maps, putting together the case files, putting together the plan, it's going to serve you two purposes. Number one, it's going to prepare you to meet with NRCS because we'll prep you on what's required in the programs. And as importantly, how much money you guys utilize. By implementing that helps with you and your bankers and all the people who are come into play. But just as importantly, as soon as you can start working with the engineering firms, the people who can design these systems and getting that done one time. I know I've worked with some of you that are on a fourth iteration of what those are. And every time there's a change in the plan, whether it be a pump size or a pipe size or a routing of those pipes, it sets us back. Cultural resources has to be done again. Environmental evaluations, all those things have to be done again. It chews away at our time and our effectiveness and efficiency. So we need to have you be prepared to know what changes we need to have on your farm. Once the water comes, we know where that turnout location is. What's it going to take from that location to service all your land? And we need to have that very well tied up and tacked down so we can do all the preparatory work of construction. This isn't going to happen overnight. Money's not going to come overnight, as Linnell and those will tell you. We have to make applications for the funding. We have to go through that whole process, and nothing is guaranteed. I'm telling you that right up front. That's why it's so important for us to work with you to build the story, as when we send that in, it's accurate. And they can count on those numbers as we build a relationship now with the different agencies that we kind of all work with to make that happen. So again, getting to know you, getting to know your farms, working closely with the Bureau of Reclamation and OCR and John and those at the East Columbia Basin Irrigation, we work as a team to make that all happen. So we're open for business 8 to 5 every day of the week.
No, 8 to 4:30. No, 4:30.
I am.
Perfect.
And And you can feel free to call me or anyone here anytime. I'm semi-retired, so I have the time to work with you and guide you and help you through this whole process. So never feel that you can't contact any one of us, and especially me. I'm more than happy. I've got a lot of experience on this project. I kind of know where the traps are and what we need to cover and make sure that you have the things you need in place to make this successful. Others are going to talk to you about timing of programs and all those different things. I'm not going to get into that right now, but there are the key programs you're going to think about are WaterSMART, Environmental Quality Incentive Program, RCPP. Somewhere down the road, we're going to have the water project of PO 566. Each one of those has their own requirements and needs. We can help you navigate some of that as well. So I really appreciate you being here, those that are here in person, those online. And so again, come. This is an open meeting. We're all friends here. You got a question, even like they say, the stupidest question is the one that really opened it up and made it work. So don't feel free to ask questions of us today. And then after this meeting is over. So I'll turn this back over to Steve. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Harold. Really appreciate that. Okay, Brittany, if you could go ahead and advance real quick here. We're gonna just put the agenda up for the day. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, so we are going to talk about PL 566, RCPP, WaterSMART, EQIP. We're just going to talk a little bit about well monitoring, and Dinah's going to end us here with some key takeaways, wrapping it all together. If you have questions throughout, raise your hand, right? This is really just, we're here to help answer your questions, to make sure you have the information you need to move forward confidently. A little bit of background. We've been funded, our conservation district, since 2021 by the Washington State Legislature through the Office of Columbia River to aggressively pursue NRCS funding for the OGWRP. And I'm just super proud to share to date, nearly $60 million has been awarded for on-farm and public systems through NRCS. So this is really leveraging dollar for dollar the state's investments through OCR, but building on the over 210 million that the state's invested over the last 20 years, not to mention other contributions from the Bureau, landowners, yourselves, East District, and others to get to where we're at with OGWRP today. As you'll see here from this pie chart, a bulk of the funding has come, it may not always, from RCPP at 46 million. A smaller piece of the pie is PL 566. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And then about a third there at 13 million is WaterSMART. That's specifically for on-farm. So you're going to hear about each of these programs today. Okay. Now, before you leave, you may want to grab this map on the table. It is basically our playbook to date. It shows where NRCS funding has gone per system, how much money, and then also kind of that dollar for dollar match that we're hoping to further leverage here very shortly.
Could I say one thing here? We've been using two terms, and one is on farm. We've been using a couple terms here that maybe some of you aren't familiar with. When we talk about on-farm systems, we're talking about where you get the water delivered from the irrigation district. From then on, those are on-farm systems, your main lines, and all that is, some of that's covered under one program. And when we talk about public or private delivery systems, that's from the canal out to your farm. So keep that in mind. There are two different things. And some we can cost share, some programs we can't, so others. So I just thought.
Thanks for clarifying that, Harold. So we're going to talk about PL 566. Now, this is specifically for the public systems, so not on farm. So appreciate that, Harold. And I really appreciate Linnell coming on the panel with me today. We're going to do some FAQs with Linnell. I'm going to ask the question. She's going to share the answer. As I was preparing for this presentation, I realized I still have a lot of questions, and I've been in the weeds on this for 5 years. So really appreciate Linnell coming to help clarify things for us. Okay, so the Small Watershed Program, this is where NRCS provides financial and technical assistance to these public works projects or these public systems when we have an approved plan, watershed plan, and we're working on that. Once the plan is approved, it will cover up to potentially 100% for engineering and design and up to 75% for construction. Now we're going to get to the details of this now, but this is just kind of baseline. This is why East Columbia Basin Irrigation District, as the sponsor, pursued this for the OGWRP. Okay, so here's the timeline. It's a little tough to see. We have been at this since 2020. We had a preliminary feasibility investigation report, or the PIFR, that was completed and submitted by East District back in October 2021. The NRCS State Conservationist, Roylene Comes at Night, submitted that application for federal assistance in December of that year, 2021. The OGWRP was approved and funded for PL 566 watershed planning, and that happened in March 2022. A key component of this was in 24 when NRCS adopted the Bureau's original EIS and had their own record of decision. Okay. Now we're in the process of finalizing the watershed plan, and then also now a supplemental EIS, supplemental to the Bureau's EIS, specifically for the 11.8, because the delivery system wasn't originally included in the Bureau's EIS for the 11.8. So we have the watershed plan for all of the remaining acres within OGWRP, and then also the supplemental EIS. Both are going to be completed this fall, tentatively. Now I'm going to say tentatively, because as you know, we have gone through 2 government shutdowns in the last year. If anything comes up, whether it's a need for funding, which thankfully we have enough, I think, funding secured right now to finish the plan. But really, tentatively, we're looking at this fall. We're very excited to be nearing the end of this work. Once that plan is approved, and Linnell's going to share some more details about what that looks like, then East District will be able to apply for funding with NRCS for the engineering and design and construction under PL 566. All right, here's the team, just to give you an idea. There's a whole group of folks that have been working hard on this for several years. So NRCS is the lead for PL 566. Thankfully, East Columbia Basin Irrigation District was the sponsor. They put in for this on your behalf. They contracted the Columbia Basin Conservation District. We turned around and subcontracted Farmers Conservation Alliance, who has a lot of experience with PL 566 and watershed planning. And then we have our coordinating agencies that we're working with. Certainly, the Bureau is a sister agency to NRCS at the federal level. We're working with Department of Ecology, WDFW, and others to help get this watershed plan and the supplemental EIS, environmental impact statement, completed. So we're back to meeting, I think, about once a week or every other week. We also have monthly coordination meetings. This team has been working extremely hard. Again, we're excited to be nearing the end of the planning process. All right, so I mentioned this before. When will the plan be completed? Tentatively fall 2026. Okay. This is where Linnell comes in. Linnell, share from your perspective from NRCS. Where are we at with this?
So we are really close and we're getting really excited about it. One of the things that needs to happen prior to the NRCS being able to sign the watershed plan is that we need to get national to sign off on it and to review and approve, and that includes the chief. And so we've been working really hard, not only here in the state, but also working with our national team to make sure that they're aware of this project. The chief knows it's coming, is excited about it. And so, but just putting in there that there's other steps beyond just what's happening in the state level with our team here at the state. We think that we don't have any concerns that the chief's going to be excited about this project and get it through, but that is one more step that's going to be.
Thank you. So Linnell said she thinks the chiefs can be excited. You may have seen in the newsletter and previously in the slide here, The current Chief Aubrey Bencourt, did visit the OGWRP in an impromptu site visit, and she was very enthusiastic, said she's been tracking the project for years. So that was really encouraging to hear from her. I think we're well positioned for this plan to fall on her desk. Yeah, awesome. Okay, Linnell, how do I or how the landowners apply for PL 566 funding for their public system?
So landowners cannot, it actually has to go through EQIP as the sponsors. The sponsor is the only one that can apply for PL 566 funding. So you need to work closely with EQIP on the public systems to be able to apply for any funding post watershed plan. And that would include design funding or construction.
Great. John Erickson, I know you're online. These landowners will be following up with you. Okay. All right. Can I access PL 566 funding for my on-farm build-outs if I'm a landowner?
And again, the answer is no. PL 566 is for public systems. And so we're talking pumping stations and the laterals on farm cost share can come from other NRCS programs, which we're going to be talking about later today.
What will the application process look like for East District, and how long is that going to take if they do apply for PL 566 funding on behalf of the landowners?
So once the watershed plan is completed, the sponsor, EQIP, can work directly with NRCS on how is best to apply for that funding. It's a fairly simple process to apply, but the question comes in as, do you do it in a big lump sum? Do we do it in phases? What's the best opportunity to get that funding? There's another question coming up here a little bit as to how much funding is in the watershed program. And there is, and I'll go ahead and say that there's only 150 million, and I say only, which is quite a bit, but that goes across the nation. And so there's high competition for this funding because we're not the only watershed project across the nation. What would happen is it's a pretty simple process to actually make the request for funding. EQIP can send in a letter. We would put that into a national database for our national team to decide where that funding comes from. And if this project gets funded at that national level, it's not a state funded project. It is a nationally funded project. Again, that's why it's so important to have the chief and our national team on board with this project as they are. So there is potential for funding to go through fairly quickly, but it will not be for an entire system. It would be recommended to be happening in phases. Again, we can also go onto the wait list, and we've had projects sitting on the wait list for a significant amount of time, as of up to a year waiting for funding. So again, it comes down to making sure that it's a priority for the chief to be able to prioritize our project across the nation. And again, we've been talking directly to the chief about this project, and the day she knows it's there.
Oh, no. All right, which OGWRP systems will qualify for PL 566 funding?
So the watershed project covers all of the systems, even the ones that have actually been completed if there's additional work that needs to be done on them. But the watershed plan, once it's complete, any project that was in the FEIS or the SEIS that is being completed would be eligible for funding.
All right. How much money, you touched on this, let's hammer it home though again.
So the watershed program has $150 million for the next 5 years. This can always change too if there's other additional funding bills that come in, or if we, okay. $150 million is what's coming annually every year. So it's a large pie, but it's across the nation. And so again, we have to compete for that funding in the watershed program. There are other opportunities for people to get involved and talk to their congressman about funding for continuing to fund this program and in other ways, but this is what we have currently, and this is what the NRCS will roll out nationwide. It's $150 million every year.
Previously it was 50 million, so thankfully in the last year we got $100 million plus up, which is great. This program's definitely gotten more attention in the last couple of years, so I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, the funding comes from bills. It's typically, we usually got 50 million in the farm bill. The farm bill didn't pass, and so this 150 million actually comes out of the big beautiful bill. That's where this latest funding comes from. So again, like I said, there's more opportunity for this program, but we have to get Congress excited about it to see that if those fundings, the NRCS just gets specifically.
For how many years?
This is for 5, including this year, so until 2030.
Great question. Linnell, could you talk a little bit about, we don't have this in the slide, so I'm hoping you can mention this. What has historically been funded under PL 566? And is this kind of different? And when was the last watershed plan, if ever, in Washington? Kind of give us just a little bit of background so folks understand.
Okay, there's a lot. Sorry, there's a lot of questions there. So in Washington, the last watershed, the program itself was really big in the 1970s, and it was not funded for many years in between. So in the 90s and early 2000s, there was no funding in this program. So there's not any more recent watershed projects. That being said, one of the highest priorities that this funding in the last 10 years, I would say, the funding has been very focused on irrigation systems and irrigation modernization. And so this project, Odessa and OGWRP in general, is very right along those lines for this program in the watershed. That irrigation has been a high priority for the nation and has been specifically funding set aside for that. In the past, in the state, a lot of the projects for the watershed program have been canals, pumping plants, reservoirs, dams, looking at irrigation infrastructure.
Great, and we touched on this, but can PL 566 fund? Oh, we didn't touch on this. This is different. We had a conversation about this, so this is different. Now, we believe, I think, you can have a private system off the East Low Canal that's part of OGWRP, right? That's not a public system that's constructed and maintained by East District. Some of you have these private systems already. Can PL 566 fund those private systems?
It says no, but actually, we can do, as long as EQIP is the sponsor, is willing to take the lead on that, take over the operation and maintenance, then yes, there is potential. But again, that is a conversation with EQIP. But it's not on farm. It has to be part of the public system that EQIP is the lead on as the sponsor for this program.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, question there.
Christine, I don't think there's anything like that exists out there. Private system that East District runs.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work. I would think that would make it a public system, right?
Yep.
And we do have John Erickson on the phone. John, you're welcome to speak up. I'm sure you're burning in your seat right now.
Having coffee. No, that makes it a public system. You're correct.
It would make it a public system.
So I guess the answer is no, that you can't, that private systems, the only way that watershed program can fund is through EQIP as the sponsor.
Yes, O&M.
Yes, I have a question in regards to that. We do have private systems that were built with contracts, and John, you can correct me on this, with contracts that landowners agree that they'll switch over to the private systems for the public system once it's constructed. Will that qualify?
See if John can hear that first.
John, could you hear Michelle's question? This is really, really key.
Yeah, I heard the
Michelle, say it
question.
again.
I'm not tracking though.
Maybe say it again, Michelle, if you can with the mic.
So, John, you know, we have the $120 per acre per year contracts for private systems that has language that where you agree to hook your private system up to a public system once it is constructed. And my question was if that system can qualify under those terms until the public system's built, then the private system can get funding through the PL 566 until it's transferred over under maybe contract agreements.
So Linnell, it would be a question for Linnell to answer. But Linnell, just to kind of throw that in there, I think she's asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, I think she's asking if the promise to join a public system would qualify a landowner owned system for PL 566.
The biggest thing with the watershed funding is that the operation and maintenance, the sponsor is responsible for the operation and maintenance. And so as long as the sponsor is willing to sign an O&M agreement that they are doing that they are going to be the responsible party, I don't see that is, I see that could potentially be funded through this program, but it has to be sponsor led.
Okay, John, did you catch that? If we could look at those contracts maybe to see if these people who have signed up for private systems, if that language would qualify them, or future contracts for people to sign up for PL 566. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions at the moment? Oh, yeah.
The PL 566 funding. Is there a restriction to start of construction for PL 566? In other words, does everything have to be approved before construction can start?
Yes, we'd have to have the watershed plan in place, which we'll have here hopefully in the fall. We'd have to have 100% design approval by NRCS and prior to any construction. We can ask for construction funding at the time at like a 90% design.
So then, regardless if the system is public or private, if it's pre-existing, it cannot qualify. Am I understanding this correctly?
If it's pre-existing,
if it's already been built.
Yes, where there's, if it's already been built, there's no reimbursement. The only time that PL 566 funding can be used is, so if we're paying for that design, then it can be used for the design funding. If we're paying for construction, it would be paid at the time of construction. If the things have already been installed, no, we cannot go back and pay for that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, you're paying for a 75% limit?
Construction.
Of construction. There has been conversation of the public system versus private that is quasi-public because it's the same system and being maintained by the irrigation district. The discussion is the issue of when the district sets a limit as to how large their system is going to be. That seems to me presents a problem because if anything is larger than that, that's being funded by private, who is not eligible for this money. Am I understanding this correctly? And therefore, I would think that the district needs to make that limit conditioned as to the funding that is available from the PL 566. In other words, not set a limit, an artificial limit, set a limit as to the funding availability. So
And
then none of it is private.
I understand that, but also you have to think that we don't have a funding. There's no funding right now in this PL 566 besides the planning funding. And so every time we're ready to do a new section, either for design or for construction, we would go back to national and request that funding. So so I guess you can kind of try to play the game, but the point is that there's no set funding from this program at this point, besides the planning that's already been funded. There's no design funding, there's no construction funding. We can ask for that under EQIP. The sponsor can specifically ask for that funding, but we do not have any at this point.
I think I want to hopefully help clarify something. Jake, are you talking to about the landowner extensions?
Yes.
The landowner extensions. Okay, so landowner extensions, they are over the normalized cost scenario. They have to be funded by the private landowners or by NRCS or some other entity. On the 22-1, 14 million was provisoed from the state, right? So I think for those landowner extensions beyond the normalized cost marker, if it is owned and maintained by EQIP, it would qualify for PL 566. Right? Am I tracking that right, John and Linnell?
If EQIP as the sponsor requests it and they are doing the operation and maintenance, yes.
Okay.
So in that case, it really isn't a private system.
No, it's not.
It's become a public system.
It's a public system. It's just outside of the normalized cost scenario set the policy by each district.
And going back to the question of there currently is not funding available, you have to ask for it. You have to have something there to ask for. That gives you two scenarios, and that's related to design. One is you make the assumption there is no money. In that case, you don't do the project. The second, there is money, and therefore your design is the total system. That's the dilemma we face. We always face the uncertainty of not having money, but we also plan for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you're right. There is currently no money, but like the sponsor, they can ask for it once the watershed plan is complete. And
Thank you.
Jake. Great. Okay, Jennifer, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. I just also wanted to clarify if the intent is for these new systems to be owned by the Bureau of Reclamation, which is something the landowners need to discuss with the district. If that is their intent, though, you still have to meet our standards and have design acceptance from Reclamation for 30, 60, 90, and 100% designs.
Thanks, Jennifer. You want to talk about that one?
yeah, absolutely correct. So Bureau of Reclamation is definitely still the lead on this project. NRCS has come in and helped to try to help financially support the program. And so as far as engineering designs, they have to meet EQIP standards, Reclamation standards, and NRCS standards. So far, we haven't run into any issues with that because NRCS depends very heartily on Reclamation's design, and we've been able to go through and accept Reclamation's designs. So thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that up.
Thank you.
So just for the sake of folks online.
So if I understand this right, the money doesn't get paid out until 100% design is designed and presented before you, correct?
Yeah, it is a reimbursement program. So
so then somebody has to front the design.
NRCS will pay for 100% design if once the watershed plan is complete. EQIP, this is the sponsor can request funding or design at 100%. It would be that you could pay for, it could be partially paid, like 20%, we could pay for the 20% design, at 100%, we pay, or at 70%, we pay for the 70% design. Like it doesn't have to be wait until the very 100% to pay for it. It can be done as a partial.
Okay, thank you.
And the catalyst for that is that we would have, the NRCS would have an agreement directly with EQIP to fund any design work, very similar to how we have our current agreement with EQIP for the planning process.
Yep. Okay. And this is just one piece of the pie that Christine showed. So the other two programs will shed a little bit more light on some of these things, but all three of the programs are reimbursements. So no existing projects can be paid for after they're, already on the ground. They have to be approved prior to.
So, I'm ready to turn in the design for 100% on the 11/8, like here in the next 2 days. Can I put in an application for the cost on that?
No.
You just told me I should.
EQIP is the sponsor, can put in for, but we also have to have the watershed plan in place prior to any design or construction funding in the PL 566 program.
And Mr. Gross is on the 11.8, so the SEIS.
That is part of the planning process.
Yeah, but could the district put in the application to pay for that design as of right now?
No, because the NRCS would pay for design. You've already finished the design. It's passed. We can't pay for work that's already done. You have to put in the request for funding, and then we would do an agreement to say that the NRCS would pay for design. Any work that's done prior to an agreement cannot be reimbursed.
Can I chime in real quick? I think a big piece is when Linnell is talking about how we can apply and get portions of it, you're getting that approved ahead of time. And then once you're approved and funded, then you can put in 20% reimbursement, 50% reimbursement, but you all have to be approved before the design. If that helps.
I think what he means, can I say something?
We're ready for that.
Well, hold on, Ethan. Jennifer is chiming in from online with the Bureau. Go ahead, Jennifer.
From what I hear from that landowner, I think what maybe he is asking is, well, the fact that we don't have an approved watershed plan yet. So the work he is doing is not covered under the watershed plan, correct? The designs, because we don't have an approved plan yet.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's why he can't submit for 100% reimbursement.
Okay, let's workshop this though really quick, because I think the 11.8, once we have an approved watershed plan and the finalized SEIS, the 11.8 will probably be, other than the 22.1, in the best shape to apply for construction dollars under PL 566.
Agreed.
Agreed. You hear that, Jerry?
Not design, but construction. Yes.
Not for construction. For construction, you're going to be at the front of the line. 22.1. Actually, yeah. And 11.8. You're in a good place.
So one thing I'd like to say though is, don't wait for the PL 566 funding. Don't wait, please don't, because it's no promise that it's coming. There's no promise that this design funding is going to come. There's no promise that the construction funding is going to come through this program. It is competition again across the nation for a small pie. We're going to try the best we can. That is, I think, one of the main points from the NRCS that I kind of wanted to make, is that we are working really hard to try every avenue to bring different programs to create opportunities. And so this is just this program is just another opportunity, just like RCPP, just like WaterSMART. We're trying to open up as many doors as possible for funding and getting this project on the ground.
Yeah, Mark.
On the topic, I apologize, I'm gonna ask a further nitpicky question. So in the long lines of don't wait, funding uncertain. If a landowner proceeded with the district to get to a 30% design, and then the watershed plan was approved, would the district be able to, at that point in time, apply for additional design funding to take it from 30 to 100 before they proceeded beyond the 30?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. That was good. Thank you, Mark. Right. Okay. Right, if you could advance there, clicker's not working. Oh, it's frozen. Hang on. All right. Does PL 566 cover O&M in the future? Linnell?
The answer is no. The sponsor is responsible for all O&M.
So East District, you're on the hook.
The farmers.
The farmers ultimately.
Are there provisions if funded by PL 566 or NRCS? Are there provisions for repair or maintenance in that respect? I understood, maybe I'm wrong, that once NRCS builds something, they make certain that it stays there. Is that correct?
We will have to have an operation and maintenance agreement with EQIP. And I understand that Reclamation has something similar if they take over the ownership. And so NRCS would have a requirement that EQIP follow the operation and maintenance agreements that we agree on. And but we would have to follow whatever's in that agreement. If that includes fixing the pipe for a certain thing, or lifespans on a valve only lasting for a certain amount of time. EQIP, as the operation and maintenance owner and the agreement, they would be responsible for that. There's no funding from the NRCS for operation and maintenance.
I've got a question on that.
Talking to the mic, Carol, talking to the mic.
Just to add a little bit to that, every practice that is put on the federal funding or any has a life expectancy. So let's say you've got a pump in the NRCS manual or whatever, it says that pump is expected to be operated and maintained through the life of that piece of equipment, which typically 15 to 20 years. Subsequent to that, after that has reached its life expectancy, is there anything in there that says they could go back and apply for funding to replace outdated equipment?
As far as, not with PL 566, but with NRCS programs, if a pump is past its 15 or 20-year lifespan, you could reapply to replace that with our programs through EQIP. But there's no guarantee that you can qualify for funding at that point.
I would say it's similar with the PL 566 program, but I don't know where the PL 566 program is going to be in 20 years. It did dry up, and we do have funding as part of a rehabilitation in this program as well. But I would say 95% or more of that funding goes to fixing dams. And so I would not expect that funding would be available.
If I could, and I don't want to go too far down the road speaking for the irrigation district, once you have a public system in play and the district is O&Ming that system, that future work is covered under their assessments that they charge all the landowners by the acre. and is accounted for through that process. Now, certainly, there's an opportunity to get free money. The district's gonna go for it, right? But when you talk about replacing these public systems, I don't know if that's a valuable road to go down and sidetrack yourselves on in this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. All right, so some key takeaways here. You want to take it away, Linnell?
Okay, the biggest thing, watershed plan is hoping to be done this fall. That's exciting. We're really looking forward to getting that in place, to be able to start the next step in this program. EQIP is the sponsor, and they'd be the ones that would be requesting any additional funding for design or construction. This program can cover up to 100% for engineering design, and then up to 75% for construction. And then currently there's $150 million a year available in this program across the nation.
Awesome, thanks, Linnell. I think I'll just add too, you may have heard over the years that this watershed plan would need congressional approval. That is no longer the case. Super exciting, does not have to go before Congress. It really truly just sits with the chief to make the approval, and our state conservationist Roylene comes at night to sign it. So we're on the fast track there. And then also, this is a bit of weeds, but with the change in administration and leadership at NRCS, they are looking at a more streamlined approach, very thankfully, with this watershed plan. So even though it's not going to be completed until tentatively this fall, we are looking at an extended timeline. But with these efficiencies and being able to adhere to the existing studies that have been done by the Bureau, by ecology, economic analyses, and all these things, we're able to do a bit more of a streamlined deal. So it is a bump up from what it would have been otherwise, but again, we're looking at this fall. Okay, with that, are there any other PL 566 questions?
One question on the watershed plan. We're part of an early discussion on the plan that we're working on in our area. Would it need its own watershed plan done specifically, or is it going to be encompassed in this current one? The pair system.
I don't know where that is, I'm sorry. That's.
Where their systems are? Where's your system? Or where are they?
Basically the Road 20 in Stratford area, so the very north end of the project.
It's at the EL, it's the Eastlow 4.8 mile.
And will they qualify for PL 566 under our current watershed plan?
I don't believe so.
Okay, it's a little outside of that. So how do we determine the geographic scope of the PL 566 watershed plan?
There's a map. I can't really answer your question because I don't really have a great scope of where you're, how far north that is, and if it's encompassed in the, I guess if it's in the FEIS, that would be the biggest question. And so that would be maybe a question for, I just don't know that, but maybe a reclamation or EQIP does.
Brent, let me jump in. Brent, I just, for purposes of today's meeting, give me a call. We can chat about it.
Call John.
Yeah, yep.
Great question. Did you have more to add to that, Mark?
I like the answer of call John.
We all like that. Call John.
On work at the GIS area, I believe that closely aligns with the watershed plan boundary, and so that's going to be kind of a base metric. But if you have questions, you're going to have to reach out and talk with John.
Yeah, if anybody didn't hear Mark's answer, if it's within the FEIS boundary, then it's also within the watershed plan boundary. So.
All right, well, that's it for PL 566. We're a good hour into this. Before we jump into RCPP, do folks want to take a quick 5-minute break? Or do you want to just keep rolling? Michelle, what do you want?
Oh, let's keep going.
We're going, okay. All right, Griffin, go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. So today I'm talking about the RCPP program, information updates, kind of giving an update on where we're at, where we're going with this for OGWRP. So I kind of want to start off just thanking and introducing our RCPP team here at the Columbia Basin Conservation District. So you have me, Griffin Hansen, I'm the RCPP program manager, and Indira Kulkarni, and I'll give her a second to introduce herself here.
Yeah, so I'm the planner for on-farm projects. So if you have an RCPP application or a project that's already contracted, you've probably gotten an email from me. And if you have any questions, please reach out, seriously, anytime.
So when you have questions, just ask her. Additionally, we have Dinah Rulo, Christina here on the stand. They're both incredibly influential and helpful team. We have Deanna Elliott, Harold Cross, he's also on the stand, Doug Allen, and Britton Baker as well. And they'll all kind of have their parts and talk about them as well. I also wanted to just give a thanks to the NRCS team. We have Ethan McJames out here somewhere. Linnell, yeah, Jason back. They've been incredibly influential and helpful in getting the whole RCPP process finalized for producers and allowing us to kind of move forward with funding those projects.
And special shout out to Anna Plesky, who is our communications, and Shauna, who's doing a lot of the admin behind the scenes.
Yes. I didn't have enough room to fit everybody on here, so I had to take a few people. So just to kind of introduce the RCPP, so it stands for the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. So this is conservation activities focused into specific regions within the OGWRP. Usually these have a primary resource concern. Obviously, in the case of the OGWRP, it's groundwater depletion is kind of the primary resource concern being addressed. This offers financial assistance for public works, public system, or on-farm funding for practices installed. And then before I move forward, kind of want to give a quick thank you to all our partners that helped kind of create this RCPP program. Allows us to really move forward with planning and getting it organized and ready to go, and allows us to really get the funding going on that. So incredibly thankful for these partners. There's a large amount of them at EQIP. How many
awards has?
So we've received 4 RCPP awards. I'll go right back to that last slide. So we've had 4 awards, and I'll kind of go into detail on these 4 awards, but we've had the 86.4 had 1 award, and then we had 3 awards on the next 2 laterals north, so the 84.7 and the 8.6. So just kind of introducing what's been done so far. So we have completed we've worked on the EL 86.4. This was RCPP 2952, that was kind of the number designation for it. And so far we secured 5.4 million in on-farm assistance, so that would help install on-farm practices for connecting to the lateral. 4 RCPP on-farm contracts were funded, 34 producers were funded under that. And that totaled to 2.3 million. And then an additional 8 were funded under WaterSMART, so a separate fund pool. We'll be talking about that later on as we kind of introducing that more thoroughly. So that totaled up to 3 million. And then we had, through that project with RCPP, we helped fund 7.4 million miles. 7.4 million miles now. 7.4 miles of pipe were funded using RCPP doing that. And then 71 acres of conservation covers, that'd be like your conservation grass mixes and stuff. Those were funded as well. So you can see on the map there, this is 86.4 miles from the bifurcation where the canal splits into the east and west. And then moving on to the next 2 systems north. So we have the EL 8.6 and EL 84.7. So collectively, we have picked up 6 million in RCPP on-farm assistance for those 2 systems. And then 23.1 million secured for construction of the actual laterals. So that's to help assist with the construction there. And then with that, we haven't obviously completed pipe install on those yet, but we have 20.9 miles of pipe that are planned to be installed currently. And that's based on just so far what we've done with contracting on RCPP. And then additional 50 acres of conservation cover planting that was planned out with that. So additionally, expected on-farm install for all the practices is fall 2026. That's kind of expected right now. And then public system is expected for spring 2027 for the laterals. Then continuing forward on that, we have 2 AFAs. So these are our 2 newest RCPPs that we started planning on. And these are currently in the process of processing applications that we received in the fall, and then building contracts and planning out those. So we had an application period that was due October 31st. That was for RCPP 3136, which covers the 84.7 lateral. So producers connecting into that lateral. And then we had another application period that closed December 12th, and that was for the 8.6 lateral as well. So in total, we had 8 applications for each lateral on that system that were funded additionally. And that gave us 16 additional on top of the previous 15 that had been picked up by a different RCPP. And so right now we're receiving new NRCS rates that will be used for our planning process on these new RCPPs. And so kind of expecting a little bit of change in terms of how cost share works on those and reimbursement works on those. And then we will be announcing awards for that for contracting coming up this spring. So kind of keep an eye out for those. And then additionally, we're working with the WaterSMART program out of NRCS to help kind of pick up additional projects that kind of coordinating to match theirs. That way we can fund as many projects as possible, either through RCPP or WaterSMART. So getting additional funding for additional laterals, we have a notice of funding opportunity it's still to be announced. So we're still kind of keeping the dream alive there. And that is slated kind of priority for EL 22.1 and EL 11.8. So those are kind of our priority laterals that we would be applying for funding. And so we would apply for funding through this notice of funding opportunity from USDA. In order for us to apply for a lateral, the lateral design has to be at 30%. So that's something that's required for us to actually send in our proposal for funding for additional RCPPs. And then additionally, kind of reiterating, there's also EQIP WaterSMART that's going to be available for these. And that's going to be part of another planning process through NRCS. So if CBCD is awarded an RCPP after we've applied, after the notice of funding opportunities come out, we will announce an application period where producers can sign up. It's a 30-day application period. In the past, so kind of giving some numbers, our first RCPP we took applications for, we received 15 applications, and those were picked up for RCPP funding. So pretty large pot of funding there. And then we had 2952, that was our additional, that was on that 86.4 lateral. So that funding was split between WaterSMART and RCPP. So we had 4 producers that got picked up for funding. Now that came out to more contracts. It's just 4 producers got picked up. So kind of, it gets a little more complicated, obviously, there. And then we had for 3084, we had 8 producers sign up as well. So those are being processed right now. And then for 3136, which is the 84.7 lateral, we had additional 8 producers as well sign up for those. So those remaining 16, those last 2 bullet points, when those are still in process, we're going to be releasing those contract announcements in spring. And then additionally, we have kind of, once we announce the application process, producers who are eligible can send in an actual application for us. And we can process that and get that kind of rolling in our system. We've been announcing the RCPP applications through our newsletter. Anna, she does a great job on the newsletter, so I always suggest subscribing with reading that whenever it comes out. We also have additional announcements on the CBCD website as well, so kind of additional places. And then usually we just do direct contact with producers. We're just kind of letting them know, sending emails, letting them know that they're eligible, that there's a funding pool available during the sign up to. And then, so what is needed for like a successful full application? First thing is to meet USDA eligibility requirements. So typically that looks like going and talking to your FSA office, updating your AGI, your landowner information through FSA, making sure all those records are really up to date. So when we submit these applications, they can verify it for the application. A design and then additional practices that are going to be installed with that design. So that comes in the form of irrigation pipes, pumping plants or conservation cover. So those are kind of traditionally the three practices that have been covered under RCPP. And so bringing a design and then what practices are going to be covered under the application are kind of, they're helpful because they help the application kind of become more robust so we can find that. And then wells as well. So another requirement with RCPP is that we have wells that are supposed to come offline associated with each contract. So an idea of where these wells are, if they're registered with DOE, EQIP is aware. So obviously you have all your well information kind of up to date as well through DOE and EQIP. And then finally, just kind of a timeline for expected construction, kind of when you're anticipating to have this project go in the ground. That helps us kind of plan out when we need to have funding available for that project, and then kind of additional surveys and stuff, which in the next slide, so for install, so after we've announced that RCPP is picked up for funding, after we've done the whole application process and everything, there is kind of a few steps before actual install that are required. These are kind of these three steps are kind of the formula for successful funding effectively. And so that would mean engineering designs that have been submitted and approved, submitted to NRCS and approved for their functional review process. Cultural surveys that have been reported in this, there's a 30-day consultation period that's associated with that. So there's a survey, a report period, and an additional consultation period as well. And then finally, having developed and finalized contracting documents as well. So that includes irrigation pipelines, your pumping plants, and then your implementation requirements as well for those practices have to be signed and agreed on. It's something I kind of wanted to really kind of highlight on this slide is that engineering and cultural, when those are up to date and there aren't additional changes, we're able to kind of move that contracting process faster. But as engineering changes and as cultural changes, if we have to have additional surveys, additional review processes through NRCS, that can kind of add time to approval for install for that contract. So kind of something to keep in mind now, obviously on our end, keeping us up to date on their engineering designs, that way we can address additional surveys and is kind of critical in keeping that timeline going as smoothly as possible. And then after install, there's an actual payment process. So that includes certifying the practices according to the implementation requirements that are provided by us in NRCS. And so we follow the NRCS standards for those requirements. And then finally, kind of a few steps after that, but reimbursement is the method for payment on this. And so these are done through reimbursement, as Vanessa said. And so kind of final slide on here I have is kind of the do's and don'ts of applying and getting a successful application contract through. Always call CBCD if you have any updates or you want to apply any changes. Always call us, let us know. That way we kind of have an idea of what we need to do on our end to kind of keep that rolling smoothly. Keeping FSA records up to date is key and being eligible for RCPP. And then same thing with engineering designs, keeping us up to date with any changes that you have. If there's been adjustments since contracting, we have to account for those. And then implementation requirements, so those would be your seating mixes, your pipe recommendations, that kind of thing. And then maintaining documents from when you installed, so that's all your C tags, your receipts from when you bought the CD or the pipe or the pump material. Just kind of records of what was installed, just kind of helps make it so we can certify what was installed a little easier. And then stressing again, kind of the lateral needs to be at 30% engineering for us to apply for an RCPP. So obviously that's kind of critical for allowing us to do that. And then kind of don'ts on RCPP are obviously, if you don't install before contracting has started, otherwise it won't be eligible for reimbursement through RCPP. Additionally, that would include cultural surveys need to be up to date. So if you change the pipe route or if a survey hasn't been performed yet, that's required as well. And then engineering approval has to be up to date through NRCS before payment can be processed. And that was kind of my full slide there. So are there any questions on kind of RCPP process? I focused a lot on the on-farm. There's a whole public works portion as well that we work with EQIP on as well. But in terms of like on-farm or public works, are there any questions? So
Yeah, I've got, maybe you said it and I missed it, but under an RCPP contract, typically runs 1 to 5 years. Trying to get it ahead of time, but we have to have a practice installed in the first year. And that's why we typically put the conservation cover in there, so we could get that planted, cover that aspect of it. So practice installed. That's why timing is so important. You know, that signing up for RCPP before you know when the water is actually going to be delivered to your farm is kind of a critical thing. So the worst thing that can happen to us, we write a contract with you and we don't install RECs first 24 months, which disqualifies you, or we don't do it according to plan, or we string it out to the 4th year. All those things are administrative issues, but the critical thing is having a contract in place with something in the first 24 months or the first 12 months.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to add a few things too, and then I think we have some questions online. But a few things that are coming up for me, these partner contributions are critical to the RCPP program. So our success in getting the 4 RCPPs that we did on the lower 3 systems were because we had significant state contributions for that, nearly dollar for dollar. It was dollar for dollar, over dollar for dollar in some cases. That helped make us very competitive. So, and also when we're looking at that 30% design, we need a pretty well baked project to put in a competitive proposal. That's why really the 22.1 and 11.8, they're next. They've got their 100% designs, but then also on the 22.1, we now have $57 million that the state has invested in the 22.1 that can be utilized for that partner match. That partner contribution match is super critical again for that competitive application that we're going to put in on behalf of the landowners. So anyway, just really excited, thankful for the state's support there. We wouldn't be getting these RCPPs without it. The other thing I just want to note that Griffin added, touched on with the 86.4, we had the great fortune of getting 2 awards, one through RCPP and one through WaterSMART, not knowing if we would get either. And the 86.4 landowner got both. And so that's where we'll continue to aggressively pursue RCPP. Very thankfully, Holly's going to talk about WaterSMART. NRCS has allocated funds for on-farm work with WaterSMART. We're gonna continue to work closely to help make sure we maximize our ability to get cost share for on-farm especially. So what makes the most sense? Is it RCPP on-farm award that we hope to get? Is it WaterSMART? Is it EQIP? Is it from the State Conservation Commission through their cost share programs, right? We're gonna do everything we can to get as much of the cost share lined up and coordinated as best as possible. Now, another note I had here, we do want you to absolutely subscribe. You may already be subscribed to our newsletter. I want to thank John Erickson. John did provide all of the remaining 30,000 acre landowners, our new landowners coming on board, your email addresses and contact information. So we've already subscribed you. Hopefully that's how you learned about this. But if you have another preferred email address or more people that you'd like to add to that newsletter, be sure that you sign in at the door there. Give us your email address and we'll get you subscribed. That's kind of our base way of communicating. So we've got some questions online. Nothing online? Nope. Okay, we're gonna roll right in here. Oh, Carol, do you want to add something?
You have an addition to our panel, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I was just going to. So we're gonna move. Actually, we're gonna take like a two-minute break because we need to get Holly your slides up, and then we'll have you introduce yourself and we'll talk about WaterSMART for on-farm.
Chris, can you say where the bathroom is by chance?
The bathroom is just down the hall here and to the right, or if you want, you can sneak through this door here, another little door to the right, and there's bathrooms tucked inside there.
Please get snacks and check out our table too.
Thanks, Diana. Okay.
Oh, now.
Good to see you here.
So you got all of that.
Why don't you do your quick?
We're here to support you. Just put up some serious. Cool. Yes. Yeah, you know, the people cast. Yeah, a lot of applications of the project, but I will say people are known as the guy. Not a lot of that's streets and paths. Yeah, I mean, there's some.
It's always really been about whatever. The big investment. Was a great vendor. This is just their planning program.
So I covered the whole central part. Last is so south, so four projects. That's you. So those are our three major, not bad cities. That's what my Yeah. So kind of like you guys. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I was sitting back.
Yes, That's always scary. Yeah. I can mess it up on Yeah. Essentially, it's to do with. Sorry. How you been? That's about.
Hey, Anna, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, we're gonna start,
That's kind of, yeah.
Ollie's gonna give an overview here of NRCS programs and assistance with an emphasis on WaterSMART. Again, this is another on-farm program that we have been blessed enough to receive funding from NRCS for, but I'll let Holly introduce herself and share more of the details about that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Holly Taylor. I should have like.
really close, yeah, really close.
So my name is Holly Taylor. I'm the district conservationist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service in Grant and Kittitas counties. Apologize for my late arrival this morning. I had a conflicting appointment, so thank you. I'm glad I still got some conversation on PL 566. But yeah, I'm here to talk to you about the programs that NRCS offers and kind of discuss how they overlap a little bit with what the district has and some of the similarities and differences between the funding opportunities. Oh, yeah. So we are the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We are a agency under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We provide financial and technical assistance specifically targeted to treat resource concerns on private land. So we're one of the only federal agencies that actually spends public dollars on private land. And our motto is helping people help the land, to hopefully improve your land so that it stays productive for yourself and future generations. And what we consider a resource concern may be different than what you might have in mind. We're talking about natural resource concerns, and we have soil quality, water quality and quantity, air quality, plant health or plant community structure, animal resource concerns such as wildlife habitat or livestock production limitations, energy and human, including economic and social considerations are our list of soil or resource concerns. So we can contract conservation practices that help improve identified resource concerns on your land. For these programs, mostly we're looking at either water quality or quantity. Irrigation efficiency can help reduce water quantity, groundwater depletion for the OGWRP program. Our primary programs that are available are the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. We use the acronym EQIP, and the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP. You may have heard recently of a program called the Regenerative Pilot Program, RPP. It's been on the news lately. It was announced in January. It's not actually a new program in and of itself. It will be EQIP or CSP contracts. They've set aside 25% of the budget for those programs to go to these specific regenerative practices. So it isn't a new program. It's still the same practices we've always offered, just with specific funding available to a particular subset of practices. There's also the Regional Conservation Partnership Program that Griffin talked about. That's NRCS funding that's administered through partners like the conservation districts and agricultural conservation easement programs that if you wanted to enroll your land in a long-term easement program, we also have those available. You can find out more about all these programs at the link below the NRCS website. But primarily I'm here to talk to you guys about EQIP. It uses conservation practices to improve natural resource concerns. And there's priority funding available under EQIP for this area specifically, including WaterSMART and the National Water Quality Initiative. So WaterSMART isn't its own program, it's a subset of funding under the EQIP program. And these are the current WaterSMART areas that we have approved in this area. WaterSMART, we requested the Odessa Groundwater Replacement Project. This is the first year of funding available under this WaterSMART. And highlighted in the green. So if your land falls in that green area, you would be eligible for consideration for this subset of funding. If you're outside of that area and you have an application with us, we'll still consider you for funding under the general statewide irrigation funding that's available. But if you fall within the green area, you kind of get a second chance, and there's slightly different ranking criteria, so you may rank higher if you're treating the groundwater resource concern. We also have the Columbia Basin Irrigation District WaterSMART project. And there's a few others across the state that aren't pictured here. You can find the whole map on the NRCS website as well. And there's also the National Water Quality Initiative that's targeted to more water quality, so sediment, nutrients, and pathogens delivery to surface waters. And we have the Lower Crab Creek area. So if your farm falls within that area, your application would also be considered in that pool as well. When you have an application for EQIP with us, we consider you in all the fund pools that you are eligible for. So it's kind of like throwing your hat in the ring you may get more than one opportunity. But there's always a statewide rules if you don't follow in these areas. And if you're wanting to seek assistance with NRCS, because it is a separate program, it's important to contact NRCS. You may have an application with the district under the RCPP program for the exact same project, but it is administered through NRCS. So you would want to start by visiting with us, making an application, talking to us about your goals and your project, identifying the location. We would take an application for you and determine your eligibility. To talk similar to the RCPP, you need to visit with Farm Service Agency and update your farm records to make sure all the land in the application is listed with the Farm Service Agency under the applicant's name specifically. A lot of times, and the applicants and the individual are not interchangeable. So the farm records need to match whoever is the applicant for the contract. And then it goes through a ranking process that is competitive. Funding is somewhat limited. If you fall within those areas, you have that extra some money set aside for those areas specifically. But if you, once they're ranked, we go down the list in the order of ranking scores and fund until we run out of money. And each pool has a slightly different ranking criteria, so you may rank higher in the WaterSMART than the general statewide pool if you're specifically treating groundwater, depending on the practices they were applying for. And then implementing, similar to RCPP, you must have an approved signed contract. We cannot pay for anything retroactively that was started or completed prior to having an approved funded contract. And then you also still have to wait for the cultural and engineering review before you be cleared to actually start construction. So that process can take some time. The staffing limitations, especially the cultural review process, can take 6 months or more sometimes. So in order to be eligible, USDA eligibility for NRCS programs, you must control the land that's in the application, which can be either owning, leasing, or having some sort of other informal agreement. But your farm records must be established with the Farm Service Agency, and that land must be listed under the applicant's name. You must also meet the Farm Bill income limits, which are currently 900,000 AGI, and you have to file that paperwork with the FSA each year. And then be in compliance with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation requirements in the Farm Bill. They don't want us spending money on land if it's eroding excessively. And have an identifiable resource concern, which is pretty easy. Pretty easy to improve your irrigation efficiency or reduce your groundwater withdrawal. So. And then we can accept applications at any time. And there's usually an annual batching period. Occasionally we'll have more than one batching period. And then a competitive ranking process. So for the applications we've received before January 15th of this year, we'll be looking at ranking and finding out who is selected for funding mid to late April this year. And then moving through the process of completing those contracts and then getting cultural clearance. So if you already have an application on file with us, the eligibility deadline is coming out on February 28th. Just a reminder to make sure that you get the AGI paperwork and anything else that's missing updated with Farm Service Agency, because your application will not move forward this year if you do not meet that eligibility deadline. And then the practices must be installed to NRC standards and can't be started prior to contract approval. So you have to have a contract approved, and then you have to do the work and front the money. It is important to figure out your financing ahead of time, because the payments can't be made until after things are installed and inspected and ensure that they meet NRCS construction standards. that we review, prior to approving start. So it's a little bit of a process. And the incentive payments are a set rate per practice, so it's not based on a percentage of your actual costs. The new payment rates come out each year, so we know what they are for 2026 now, but we don't know what they'll look like for 2027. And in 2026, at least for things like pipeline, they are lower than they have been this year's. NRCS payments are also considered taxable income, so that's something to consider when you're deciding who the applicant will be. And the payments are made after installation and inspection, so you do have to plan ahead for financing the construction. Any questions about the process? Okay.
If you applied for NRCS program, got awarded, can you also go do EQIP on the same project?
EQIP is NRCS. Do you mean
Yeah.
with the district?
Yeah, well, the fire on farm, is that all done through EQIP?
If it was through NRCS, but the district also has on-farm
Okay.
things.
Okay,
And generally, we do not double fund the same project.
okay,
So at NRCS, if you do have an application with both the district and NRCS currently, once they find out who they, how far down their list and how many they can fund, who wants to move forward with the district this year, those applicants would cancel their applications with NRCS. They would not be eligible for double payment on the same practices.
so there's a cap on the top. You mentioned that.
Oh, the EQIP, so there is no through the life of the farm bill cap anymore, but each contract maximum is 400,000.
Just quick clarification too. That's the case because RCPP, PL 566 and WaterSMART are all NRCS funds and you can't pair funding, but you might hear from me in other agencies when you're funding non-OGWRP projects a lot of time, we can't pair state and federal. Just want to make sure that's really clear.
Just can't exceed 100%.
100%. You can't make it up off of it.
money off.
Yeah.
Great. Holly, can you share, so the NRCS locally has received 2 WaterSMART awards for allocations for OGWRP. The first was 86.4, that's fully constructed. We actually sent some of that money back to the main pot because we had received the RCPP also. And then you were successful in getting another round of funding allocated for WaterSMART EQIP. Could you talk about how much and over what that time period looks like? And who qualifies in terms of the geography again?
Yeah, so the previous WaterSMART period has ended, sent some of that money back. These projects are generally approved for 5 years. So the current OGWRP WaterSMART, this is the first year and it's been approved for $2 million per year for 5 years, $10 million total. Limited to $2 million per year. And this, there's better maps online, but the entire green area is what would be eligible. We have our ranking system is tied to our mapping system. So if your farm overlaps with that area, it'll automatically get thrown into that pool and we will answer the ranking questions and see if you qualify under WaterSMART. And if you have an EQIP application with us and you don't fall under that, then we would just rank you statewide.
We wanted to be sure we didn't send back any funds this time because the geography would be too small, like with 86.4.
Right, and so there are, as part of the ranking in the pool, and that we can change those questions a little bit each year. So this year, 80.4 and 84.6 will rank slightly higher. It doesn't mean the other products in other areas would not be funded, but the applications that fall within those areas would get higher points and potentially be funded first. There's a few other factors that go in ranking scores though, so it's not necessarily a determining factor.
That's helpful. So the ones that are currently like under construction on the public system, they're next to get water. Those are the ones that are getting a few extra points right now, 80.6, 84.7. And then after those are installed, then we're gonna go to the next systems that are in line.
Yeah, really anyone in this area could qualify for this money. The rankings haven't quite been finalized yet, but they will be available online if you'd like to see the questions that are asked and the points that are given. They do eventually get posted onto the EQIP website.
Thank you, Holly.
Question. If an entity is awarded through this program, can they apply for a different area, a different program under the same funding scenario?
Yes, definitely. You could have more than one EQIP application at any given time.
But the total sum could each be 450,000, or is there a limit on the total?
Each contract is limited to 450,000, and currently there's no total farm bill limit. There used to be, but there isn't this year. I don't know about next year.
So one landowner can have multiple contracts of 450,000.
Yes, yeah, the first time that happened was last year, and it's still the case this year. They may go back to the previous, it's because we don't have a new farm bill. Basically.
Is that under the one big beautiful bill? Is that the language that you're referring to?
Well, there's the one big beautiful bill, I guess, for now, that's gonna take the place of an actual, farm bill, since the last one was 2018. That one did have over the life of the farm bill limit, but that people reached that and they still haven't written the farm bill, so they put that requirement.
So is it 450,000 per entity?
It does get direct attributed down to members, so if a
Direct
member
down to
in
what?
an entity, sorry?
Direct down to what?
Direct attributed, so I guess that's our terminology, if there's two members in an entity, and they each receive 50% of the payment, that goes against those individuals' payment limit. And so if those individuals are also in two more entities with 50%, they would reach their payment limit for that third entity. I mean, so it does give you your payment share down to the individual, so it's per.
It's not per entity, it's per person.
It is per entity, but then it also will trickle down to per person if that person is in multiple entities.
So like a joint venture, would a joint venture be able to do 450 times 2?
Joint ventures do actually qualify for the implementation fee. So joint ventures can get up to 900.
And that's per contract. So for example, we don't have this stipulation with RCPP. So pardon me?
Use the mic, you're holding.
Oh, okay. I thought I was saying it with my chest, sorry. So RCPP, we're more flexible with RCPP, but I'll give you an example. So right now in the case that Holly said, you can have multiple contracts for $450,000. So let's say you had a 5-mile pipeline that was gonna cost $5 million. We could section that out and have multiple contracts that are capped at $450,000 per contract, if that helps.
The definition of a contract, is that an irrigation district contract that we're talking about?
No, NRCS contract. So you would have a contract, so you say you have 5 miles of pipeline, okay? We're gonna segment the first mile into one contract for XYZ entity. And then XYZ entity has another contract for mile 2, mile 3, mile 4, mile 5, so on and so forth.
Who's the contract between even?
Well, that would be NRCS contracts. So in that example, we did that with RCPP, and we always have that flexibility, or we do currently, and we did in the past with RCPP. And like Holly said, we currently have that flexibility right now until we get a new farm bill, and then there's stipulations with payment limitations for entities.
So in this case, when we're talking on farm, that contract would be between NRCS and the landowner directly. East District's not involved in on farm contracting matters at all, right? We're in agreement there. Yeah?
Yeah, so and just to circle back, we do have our SPP projects that also support the public works and the on-farm. So like Griffin and Dira said, they're taking applications for those on-farm projects. And then also to clarify with RCPP, they want to see an on-farm benefit. So
to my knowledge, there's no scenario where we could just have a 100% public works RCPP project. So they really want to be tied to that on-farm benefit. That's why we have a public works portion that we're paying for through ACBID, or actually through CBCD is passing the money through to ACBID. And then we also have those on-farm contracts that we're working directly with CBCD to take your applications for, if that helps.
So just so I can understand this a little better, sorry if it's a repeat maybe of your question, but can I have a contract under Griffin and then EQIP at the same time?
You could if they were for different projects.
Okay,
So different sections of pipeline or, different farms.
so using one field as an example on my farm, I apply for one through Griffin.
And
I can then no longer do an EQIP program through you on that same field.
you could for different practices. So if they can only pay for the pipeline, we could potentially assist with the pumps and the pivot, or practices that weren't already funded through the
Okay.
RCPP. You can have two contracts on the same piece of land, but
Just
you
not the
can't be
same
paying
pump.
for the same practices.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so like, for example, with that, if you have like a section of pipe on a field and you fund it under like RCPP, that section of pipe can't get picked up under EQIP or WaterSMART. You would have to, now, if you had two different sections of pipe, then you could fund either or.
Now, with a contract with you, I have to get approval through the irrigation district, but not with you.
Somewhat. I guess for the pipeline portion, we would need, if it's on their land or if they're in control, we still need permission from the district in order to do the work on that land. But our contract would be with you and you would be responsible for installation and funding upfront. We also have some situations where water rights are being transferred from groundwater to surface water, and we need that documentation.
Yeah.
To document the sacrifice of groundwater well withdrawals from the aquifer in replacement of surface water.
So that's considered a practice, is transferring our water from ground to surface.
It's not a practice in its own. If you're actually decommissioning a well, there is a incentive payment associated with fully decommissioning a well. But it is a requirement, or not necessarily a requirement unless you're moving land to non-irrigated ground. And it definitely is a requirement because NRCS, because we treat resource concerns, we can't bring land under irrigation except in the very specific instance where you fall within this area and are exchanging groundwater for surface water and moving that water to a new location. That is the only time where NRCS can pay for irrigation improvements on ground that hasn't been irrigated 2 out of the last 5 years.
And just to further add, we still really recommend you going to Griffin and to Holly and putting the same application in twice, just to help. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, is all I'm saying. Even though theoretically you can only be funded on one, we don't know which one. So just make sure you're putting your eggs everywhere. Put them everywhere.
The ranking criteria is slightly different with you guys and us. So you may.
And kind of additional to that, the documentation for water right transfer and all that, that's also applicable for RCPP as well. So that's also same, similar process. The big difference is, like Holly said, the ranking criteria is going to be different. And now we have different fund pools. And so you can't, have two fund pools funding the same project.
How are trusts treated under this program? A single entity, many members.
They are treated as essentially the same as any other entity. The entity would be the applicant. We have contracts with trusts, and each member of the entity, whether it's a trust or a joint venture, they also have to file their individual eligibility paperwork. So if you have many members, you might have to file, each member is gonna have to file an adjusted gross income form with the Farm Service Agency.
But it'd be a 450 limit per trust.
Yes, Yeah, the joint ventures and general partnerships are the only ones that qualify for that higher payment.
But remember, multiple contracts, so you max out 450, but you can apply for several, so just parse it out like Ethan was saying.
One trust could have multiple contracts capped at 450.
Is there a limit on how many contracts you're allowed?
Yay. Not right now. No.
There is a limit to how much money we have.
You just have to be prepared to move forward within the 12-month implementation timeline now. So if you're not quite ready to move forward, you might wait to apply for, you could apply this year for 1 or 2 projects. Next year for 1 or 2 more, you can have overlapping contracts at any one given time. But if you're putting in multiple applications in a single year, you should be ready to move forward with all of those in a relatively short time. Within the 24 months is, so we are required to schedule a practice within the first 12 months. But sometimes with irrigation season and just logistics, it's not actually installed, but there's a hard deadline of 24 months to issue at least one payment on the contract. Otherwise contracts are terminated. So maximum 24 months, you have to be ready to move forward on all the applications or all the contracts you've got if you've received multiple. But they'll each be ranked separately and depending on funding availability, it may or may not all be selected.
Holly, you mentioned applying for a project's funds under 2 different locations. There was yours, and then you kept saying the district, the conservation district.
Yes, the conservation district is where you would make the RCPP applications and the NRCS office is where you would make the EQIP applications.
So it would be basically under the same program or the same project.
Could be the exact same project, but it is important to communicate with us individually because our planners would be writing our contracts.
Okay,
Kind of removes the middleman.
thank you.
That is confusing. I did say before that the contracts were between NRCS and the landowner. For EQIP and WaterSMART, they are, but for the RCPP on farms, if we get an alternative funding arrangement, a specific fund type that we apply for, that contract would be between the conservation district and the landowner, meeting NRCS requirements. It's a little confusing. You're gonna get to know us well. We're gonna help walk you through the process here. Any other questions real quick for Holly on WaterSMART? Otherwise, I think we're gonna go to well monitoring real quick. It is 12 o'clock. We understand that folks need to leave. We are recording this, so it can be made available after, but I think Britton's presentation on well monitoring is super important, as well as Dinah's takeaways. So if you can stick with us, that's great. Otherwise, we'll share out the recording.
Alrighty, good morning, everybody. I do know it is 12, so I will be brief and to the point. So yeah, my name is Britton Baker. I am the well monitoring program manager. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. Okay, so quickly, topics I'm gonna go over. What's the purpose? Why am I out there monitoring groundwater? Methods, how am I doing it? Frequency, how often am I out there? What locations? Where do I have coverage? Where do we need coverage? And then kind of what's next steps. So everybody's getting their funding. We're getting systems online. We're getting things going to get this aquifer responding in a positive way. So things are up and running now. So how do we show that we're starting to possibly see any response from the aquifer? That's where the groundwater monitoring comes in. Very important aspect for us to see if all these efforts and these funds and everything that everybody has been working so hard to get into place, how's that responding? And so we do that by monitoring the groundwater. So as you can see here, I've been working very closely with WSU, Dr. Sasha McClarty, who is on the call today. And working very closely with her, and this is a graph showing a well that she has been monitoring, I believe since, see it right there. I can't see the date that it goes back to, but it's been for a little while, and you can see 2000. Okay, thank you. And you can see the gradual decline there, and then right around 2021, we started to see some things happening there, and that happens to coincide with the completion of the 47.5 system is where we're seeing that response. The solid line is the well itself, and then the dotted line is from a well that was just outside the 47.5 lateral area. And so you can see it took a little bit longer on the dotted line to see a response, just because if you're seeing that response right at the well, it's going to take a little bit for that to trickle out outside that project area. So that's why it took a little bit longer to see that response. But this is the main reason. This is the big one, to see how your efforts are responding in the aquifer. So that is our main reason, is to monitor aquifer response. Like Griffin mentioned, for our RCPPs, one of the requirements that we have for our district is to monitor 2 to 4 wells per lateral at a minimum. We're always looking for more, but minimum we need at least 2 to 4. So that's another reason. Third reason here is that we are collecting data for a groundwater web application that is currently in development. And that's going to be coupled with the old Guam data that was collected, as well as other wells that WSU is monitoring. So that will all be going together into this interactive groundwater web application. Okay, and then how am I doing it? I've got a couple methods. So I've mainly been doing the airline method. On the picture on the left there, just involves hooking up an air compressor to, it's usually a Schrader valve, just like on your car tire. And then there's a gauge there. It involves some quick measurements, but that's mainly the method I've been using. I've also been using nitrate strips to test for water quality to see if there's any nitrates coming up. Luckily, I haven't found any yet, so good sign there. We did purchase an E-tape. I didn't have the best luck getting a lot of wells because a lot of producers were anxious to have us test their wells, but a lot of these pumps and wells were installed a long time ago. And so trying to retrieve that airline data was proving to be a challenge. So we were able to partner with WSU, and the kind of future method that we're looking towards going to is the transducers, which is the bottom right picture there. And it's only about 4 or 5 inches long. And it just goes down the access port, and that is a continuous logger that will record data every single day. And then 2 to 3 times a year, someone goes out and just pulls all the data off that data logger, and you have all that information for that well. So that is kind of the future method, what we're going to be, going to in the future, so we can get a lot more access to a lot more wells. Also, when we put those transducers out, WSU is looking to possibly install some soil moisture monitoring equipment, as well as some weather stations. Okay, kind of frequency. So I've been at this since about November 24. Just been doing it monthly, and that's going to continue until we get those transducers out there. And then, like I said, it's only going to be 2 to 3 times a year. Those are going to need to be checked. And yeah, like I said, those are continuously recording. And so right now we have over a year of baseline data. A really big thing I wanted to kind of emphasize is that we're trying to get more producers signed up for this well monitoring program. And a big part of there is some urgency to it, just because as these systems come online, the more kind of before data we can have to compare it to once the systems do come online, the more we can compare and see that response, how the aquifer is responding. So a little bit of urgency, but yeah, the more growers we can get signed up, the better off, the more data we're going to have to compare it to. Okay, so this is kind of a coverage map. That is the OGWRP project area. So right now, I've got 5 wells that I'm currently monitoring. I've got 1 in Grant, 2 in Adams, and 2 in Franklin County. And I went out with WSU a couple weeks ago and looked at a lot of different wells on the OGWRP, and they are in the process currently of selecting which wells they think are going to be the most relevant for us to monitor with the transducers. They're looking at distribution, density, things like that. So we should have that shortly, but yeah, there will be many more wells to add to this list. And On the map, I just kind of put the lateral just so people could get an idea of where these wells are, but more to come. Okay, and then as far as the equipment, so on the T-post there, if producers are interested in having these soil moisture monitoring and weather stations on their ground, that is what it would look like. The monitoring equipment is looking at water potential and volumetric water content. And then for the monitoring and the weather station, just need to be 6 feet from any trees or buildings, just so there's no interference there. And then just have a 10 by 10 undisturbed area to keep the equipment safe. So we're looking to get 30 wells total to monitor throughout the project area. Currently have 5. So if we can get those within the OGWRP, that's kind of what we're looking for. They can be operational or decommissioned, either way. And if we're able to test it with the airline, there's just a couple stipulations it needs to have. Needs to be functioning, needs to be able to hold the air. We need to know the length of the airline. That's the big one for us to do our calculations. And then it just has to have a hookup, usually a Schrader valve, but yeah, something like that for us to get the air down there. So if we want to look at doing a transducer or an E-tape, it's usually just that kind of side access that's usually capped on a lot of these wells. So that's how we would approach that. So yeah, like I said, working really closely with Dr. Sasha McClarty. If anybody is interested in getting signed up for this, my contact information is right there. If anybody has any concerns, we take landowner privacy very seriously. And so if it comes to how is my data being used, who's handling my data, we will have a one-on-one conversation with each individual producer to discuss your concerns, how you want your data used, things like that. So it's all in your hands. So yeah, if anybody has, that's kind of what I have. We're limited on time, so I tried to shorten it down a little bit. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take questions.
So in the example where folks are moving water in to access water through these pumping systems through OGWRP, are you looking at the wells where they originated from and were moved from, or are you actually just looking at wells that are adjacent to the lateral systems?
Right there. Yeah, I haven't done, oh, sorry. I guess I don't understand. Moved from one well to another.
I can help address this if that's helpful. So I think, Mark, we're really focused on the laterals per the RCPP outcomes that are needing to be measured. But Britain isn't necessarily, so you're talking about the wells are further out east, they get transferred, the water rates get transferred in infill acres. I don't think we're actively pursuing further out east. However, Department of Ecology, Lincoln County Conservation District, they do extensive well monitoring also. So there's this like broader, bigger network of wells that are getting monitored. And that's what, in part, Dr. Sasha McClarty is helping gather all that data and doing those analyses, looking at wells further out. So I don't think we're specifically targeting ones that are used for infill. Maybe we should. Britain's efforts are really focused right around the lateral systems.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
And Dr. McClarty said online, we are interested in both more broadly.
And I just want to make a quick comment. We got the NRCS chief's priorities the other day, and 2 things stood out to me. One was leveraging partner resources, which we're doing with this project. And the second was outcomes. Outcomes are critical for our existing RCPPs and then for future projects that we want to apply for. So can't stress enough, it's all about outcomes, and the well monitoring is the big component there. So, and then going back to Holly addressing resource concerns, it's groundwater depletion. And so we justify that expenditure by the well monitoring. So really, really important. And we want to get more transducers out there. So it's a complex aquifer from what I understand. So, there's a lot to learn about it.
Yeah, really, the graph that Dr. Sasha McCarty's provided to us that Britain shared, showing how the aquifer is responding at the 47.5. We're going to use that data, that graph, in our future RCPP applications to show that we're already seeing a measurable difference in getting these wells offline. So it's pretty exciting data. Grateful for the partnership with Sasha and WSU. Thank you, Britton. Are there any other questions for Britton on well monitoring? Okay, we're gonna jump into key takeaways with Dinah.
Okay, so for you folks that need to hear it 3 times.
Sorry.
Hear it 3 times. And then if you guys need to read it 3 times, just let us know. We'll be sure to share slides with you guys. And Chris said that we recorded it, so you can listen to it again too if you need it 5 times. Okay. Figure away. So going back to PL 566, remember the watershed plan is going to be completed in 2026, hopefully the fall. That is not completed yet, so that's something that's important to think about. EQIP is the sponsor and will have to apply on your behalf, right? And it can cover up to 100% engineering and 75% design. And then there's currently 150 million available annually, but that's nationwide, right? So you're competing nationally. Okay, we're keeping it quick. RCPP, for us to apply, you have to be 30% engineering design for us to apply for the RCPP. Please keep engineering designs up to date. So if something changes, let us know ASAP because of the domino effect that happens after that. That all takes a ton of time between NRCS and ourselves. I wanted to clarify, we have 2 different applications too. Remember, we're talking go to Griffin, go to Holly. Ours is kind of a Google Smart Sheet that you'll be emailed, or there's a QR code for you guys to apply for, and we'll talk about their version later. Maintain all your documents, like everything, seed tags, receipts, take pictures through the process, anything to just cover yourself and ensure that if there was a lapse of communication, somebody dies, God forbid, but any of those things, just keep really good records of everything and keep track the best that you can. And then always wait for an approval letter or email to proceed. You might get a call from us, but usually we'll try and follow up with an email because I want to make sure you get something in writing. We're in the digital life now, so you'll probably get an email from us, but I think NRCS is still pretty old school and sends formal letters, so check your mail.
Your certified letters.
Yes.
Get a certified notice in your residential rural mailbox, so within 2 weeks to the post office to pick it up, please.
Next slide, please. So EQIP WaterSMART, don't want to speak for you, but remember, this is on-farm cost share only. That is a big thing. Applications are generally due in the fall. Applications are accepted anytime. This was a weird year because of the government shutdown, so we say generally in the fall, but apply anytime because life happens and things are pushed. There are application forms at 1200. Generally go to your local field office and work with their staff to fill it out and sign it properly. And then always staying up to date with FSA, and honestly, that goes for both of us. Okay. Just remember, no guarantee on NRCS funding. So all 3 of these things, PL 566, RCPP, EQIP, we're all competing against each other, state or nationally. There's no way for us to know where the cards lie. We feel really good. We've leveraged a lot of money, but there's no guarantee. So always have that in the back of your mind. You might plan like there's money, but also be wary that there might be no money. And what does the future hold, right? So just put your eggs in all the baskets and just be wary that you might not receive funding. Some well monitoring takeaways, you guys just heard it, but it's essential to see potential aquifer rebound from OGWRP. So we're really wanting to see those before. So if you guys can sign up or in these areas, contact Britton. He's got business cards on the table over there as well if you don't want to talk to him right now. Data will be used for multiple purposes, obviously the RCPP, the web app, and the aquifer rebound. Wells will be airline tested monthly until transducers are installed, maybe 2 to 3 times a year will be in your hair. WSU is also looking to install soil moisture monitoring equipment and weather stations if you're interested, so contact our office about that. And yes, ASAP, sign up now so we can get those before numbers. We're all part of a bigger group and we're all wanting to catch those metrics. And I also want to give a little bit on other funding sources here at the district. Conservation district, sorry, we need to be clear about that. We also have general cost share for non-OGWRP things, or could be OGWRP things. It's just a lot smaller money, so it's generally other things for irrigation efficiency, pasture and range health, habitat planning, soil health, dairies, whatever you have, really similar to Holly, we're seeing resource concerns that we're treating. So there's other things, or other people looking to do other kinds of advancements, please talk to a district. There's a QR code on that banner to go and apply. We do a lot of other things, right? So we all wear many hats. And then lastly, Bonneville Environmental Foundation has funding set aside for mobile drip irrigation, specifically to add onto your pivots. If you guys are interested, please contact myself or Wade. Last slide. There's 3 different offices I have highlighted here. Obviously, the Conservation District, KL 566, contact Christina. RCPP, contact Griffin or Indira. Well monitoring, contact Britain. I guess state cost share, contact me. Now, if you are applying for EQIP WaterSMART and you're in the Ephrata field office service area, contact Holly. And then if you're a Ritzville field office and that's your service area or FSA office you work with, contact Carolyn Imbo, or I know Marika's here today, contact her, like just chase her down while she's here. But that's kind of like, there's a lot of different people to contact, and it's good to see all of our faces to help differentiate the difference. Any questions? Final round of questions.
You had a slide there that said 30% design before applying first here, for these programs.
RCPP.
Yeah, 30% design according to the engineers is 50% of the cost of the design. Is this program paid for this retroactively, or do we need to find seed money for that?
For the design portion?
Yes.
More than likely seed money, except if watershed plan has been approved and EQIP is your sponsor and it's for a public entity, but for your private on farm, that's gonna be out of your guys' pocket for the design portion. Did that, anyone need to chime in?
Where do we access this recording of today's meeting?
So we're gonna put, great question, Clark. We're gonna put it on the OGWRP-programs.org website. So this is the Odessa Watershed Program website. And we will also share it out in the newsletter that hopefully you received announcing this meeting. So again, be sure that you sign up on the email there. We'll email it out, we'll post it on the website. We'll put it under news, under the article, and then we also are in need of updating some of the content on there as well. So we'll sprinkle this information throughout the website as well. Okay, great.
Holly was mentioning here earlier, up against the deadline. Is that on the smart water application?
The application deadline has passed, but we have an eligibility deadline coming up for people to get documents filed with the Farm Service Agency to document their USDA program eligibility. It's February 28th. And if you have an application on file with us, just call the Ephrata office and we can check and make sure that, if it's good to go, we can look at the system or let you know what's missing, that you need to talk to FSA about. But those are forms that are handled by FSA, our sister agency in the same building in Ephrata.
But we'll still take your application, right?
We will still take, if you don't have an application on file, we take applications at any time. It'll just be in the next batching consideration. It wouldn't be subject to that eligibility deadline because it won't be subject until the next cutoff period to eligibility requirements.
Okay, so on the next sign up for the RCPP, Christie. When are
Yes,
we,
Jerry.
when are we doing it?
That's a great question. So we're just waiting for NRCS to announce the notice of funding opportunity. So we keep hearing any day. We've been hearing this for about 3 or 4 months. I'll ask NRCS. Ethan, have you heard?
We can officially say that the NFO, or Notice of Funding Opportunity, is at the Office of Management and Budget and Management, or OMB. They will not tell us that that'll be a week or 4 weeks from now. It's going to be very close. I think we can safely say that now, whereas it should have been here by now. And then it's gonna be a fast turnaround. So they're saying 60-day turnaround from the time they announce it to the time we need to submit the proposal. The good news is y'all have been working on this for years, and so things are, 90% there. We'll make some adjustments based on the language in the NFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and we'll be good to go. So, I think everybody's pretty well set it here, from your on-farm to the broader OGWRP project. It's really all about communication and planning and meetings like these, to where we're laying things out in advance, and then we're adjusting as things change.
Thank you, Ethan. Any other questions in the room or online? Okay, thank you, everyone. We look forward to working with you.
And, so if you contact the Fredo Field office, generally I work out of the Ellensburg office 4 days a week. But any planner at the NRCS office will be able to assist you with questions regarding eligibility or an application. So if you do call Fredo and I'm not there, Evan, Payne, and Fran and Madaka are more than happy to help you.
Thank you, long number.
Yeah.